know what the future is going to look like, but we can make the following assumption: the future is now. So whatever you're doing now is likely to be what you're going to be doing in the future. So we have to find new ways of communicating. It's all about communication, isn't it? It's all about communication. So we have to find new ways of communicating without physically being there. We have to find new ways of communicating. And we actually now have the time. We've been given the gift of time, and we have the time to actually go and make these changes, to do these things, to learn these things. I'm going to look back and say, wow, I had an opportunity right now, a gift of time, an opportunity right now to prepare myself for this new world. And I took it. People remember the people who helped. Your clients need help. Your customers need help. Your customers are afraid. They're panicking. They're worried.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Feel Good Friday. This week, I'm joined by Padraig. Padraig is an expert in sales, communication, behavior. He's worked with Chuck Feeney for a number of years, and he's a managing director and owner of TTI Success Ireland. So, Padraig, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Paddy. Great to be here with you. Looking forward to getting all your insights.
Yeah. we've a short period of time, Padraig, and I know from talking to you in the past, you have a lot of information to share with us. So I suppose we crack straight into it. And I suppose the first, I'd like you to finish the sentence for me to start the interview. So, and the sentence is, our world is changing, ... So,
okay. Let me think about this one out. You give me a hard one to start. Okay, the world is changing. Before I continue the sentence, let me just take a step back and say the world is changing for sure. What is changing too, I don't think anyone knows. I think if we did, we'd all be very wealthy men. But I think what we can definitely say is the world is not changing to what we had before. If it's changing, it's going to be different. So what we've had in the past, the way we've done business, the way we've worked, and the way we have even socialized is going to change. For example, everybody I know, all my clients, everybody I'm working with is going digital. And we're not going to go back. So the world is changing. I get a simplest example is I talk to my mom. She's 91 years old, and it's all digital now. She sees me, I see her, we talk. I talk to my children, and one lives in Tipperary, the others are different parts of Dublin, and we talk. We have a call every week on Zoom. We never did this before, ever. And now it's become a habit, where once a week we have our little call. We all get together, everybody's having their lunch in different houses at the same time. We're all having our lunch together, but in different places. So the world is changing. What it'll look like, I don't know, but it won't look like the past.
Okay. Yeah, so I suppose there's a lot of there's learning happening at the moment, and maybe some people might even be aware that we're learning at the moment. There's development happening at the moment, and a lot of adapting happening at the moment. How have you developed or adapted over the last 5 weeks? I suppose we've been in lockdown, and what do you think we might need to adapt going forward?
Okay, let me go back to your question. The world is changing again before I answer that. So we don't know what the future is going to look like, but we can make the following assumption: the future is now. So whatever you're doing now is likely to be what you're going to be doing in the future. This is likely to continue. So, for example, my mom, 91, is now getting used to seeing me on the phone. She's not going to go back to just hold your phone up here. She'll want to continue to see me. So a change has taken place for her. She was unable to do that up until recently. She couldn't do it, impossible, and all of a sudden she had to do it, and she did it. And I tell the story of Harari, the author of Sapiens and Homo Deus and 21 Ideas for the 21st Century. And he was a professor down in Tel Aviv, University in Tel Aviv. And he tells the story how for 20 years they talked about how to take the university online, and it was impossible. No matter what option they looked at, it couldn't possibly work. There was no way to do it. And then in 1 week in the pandemic, they took the whole university online. There's no going back. So the future is now. People are making these changes. Whatever changes you're experiencing, they're not going to go away. So when we go back to normal, it's not going to be normal. It's going to be now. This is it. So, for example, the changes that we've made, I'm going to give you a simple example. I'm talking to you on Zoom. I've mastered Zoom. I genuinely have. I've spent, you can say I'm here with I've no drop, I have no background, whatever, but that's on purpose because I'm working from home and I want people to see I'm working from home because they're all working from home. But I've actually mastered Zoom. I've been taught about mastering Zoom, another piece of technology, for years, about doing this, that, and the other. I never got around and I never had time. So what does the future look like? The future looks like now. More of this, more and more of this. I'm not saying there won't be any of the past. There will be some of the past, but more of this. One. Two, we're changing by adapting, saying, how can we do our business digitally? And I think that's going to be a big, big part of it. And the example I've given to somebody else recently, actually, who asked me the same question. I said, historically, when you went to buy a car, what did you do? And you went and you drove around town, you looked at 50 cars at 50 different showrooms. Or when you went to buy a house, or even rent a house, what did you do? When you got in your car on a Saturday and Sunday, you went from house to house to house doing these viewings and killing yourself, rushing around trying to see things and jostling with everybody else in the queue to try and get in and get a bid in before somebody else grabbed it on you and so on. That isn't happening right now because it can't happen. So imagine a car dealer who does a virtual tour of every car he has, and you can go online and look at it. Or an estate agent who does a virtual tour of the house, and you can go online and look at them. So you can sit at home, at your computer screen, look at 20, 30, 40, 50 houses, yourself and the partner, and say, actually, those three look interesting. We'll go and visit those and set up your appointment and go and visit those. Once that's done, do you seriously think that come up September or next spring, you're going to go back to hopping in your car and driving around the country looking at these? You're not. And the person who hasn't adapted, the person who hasn't moved will be the person who's left behind. So the people who've adapted, who've moved, who've gone down this route, and I'm just giving two examples, who've gone down this route. For example, in our business, you asked me, what have we done? We have taken, if you look actually behind me, you'll see that table behind me, my little meeting table there in my home office. And you'll see some files on that. That's me working on our online certification training for the sciences that we do. And we've been talking about doing this since forever. And we haven't done it. And now we have to do it. And of course, now also we have the time. So I think two interesting things are happening right now. We all have to change. We have to go digital. We have to find new ways of communicating. It's all about communication, isn't it? It's all about communication. So we have to find new ways of communicating without physically being there. We have to find new ways of communication. And we actually now have the time. We've been given the gift of time. And we have the time to actually go and make these changes, to do these things, to learn these things. In a conversation with somebody recently asked me about what have I learned over the years. This is my fourth crisis. So I was around for the Asian crisis in the late 80s, early 90s. I was around for the dot-com bubble when I lost my shirt. I was around for the 2008 recession when I lost my shirt the second time. And I'm around now for the COVID pandemic. And it's interesting having gone through all these various cycles. And you say, what do you learn? And what I learned is when I look back on times in my life, I have many regrets and many recriminations. And I look back and I say, should have done this, should have done that. Why did this? Why did I do that? And the decision I made this time round is I'm going to look back with no regrets and with no recriminations. So in 6 months' time, come September, come December, whenever it's going to be, come January, February, March, whenever it's going to be when the world gets moving again, I'm going to look back and say, wow, I had an opportunity right now, a gift of time, an opportunity right now to prepare myself for this new world. And I took it. I didn't waste it. I didn't sit at home catastrophizing. I didn't sit at home like drinking beer. I sat in my office and I worked a normal day. In fact, I probably work longer hours right now, to be honest with you, than I normally would, because I find I'm at my desk, I have loads to do. But I'm making use of the time. I'm making use of this gift of time to prepare myself for the future, primarily to digitize. One of the interesting things, just a quick aside, one of the interesting things I've learned is, we all know this. I remember years and years ago meeting Tony Kilduff of the Kindle Group and being in his office, and up on the shelf behind him, he had all this software and these packages he used to use in the banks. And I'd never seen anything like this before. And he said to me, write once, sell many times. And I remember at the time it struck me so forth. I'd never heard this concept. This is years ago. I'd never heard this before. And of course, that's the model now. That's the model of the internet. You do a program, you do something, it's available there, the world can buy it. You write it once or you do the video once like this, and it's there forever. And if you were charging for this video, for example, for this conversation, this would be available forever. And people would be buying this at $1 a pop or $10 a pop forever. Or you'd have a subscription model or whatever it would be. And I'd never heard that before. So we're actually trying to digitize. We're actually trying to write once, sell many times. We're trying to see how can we take our material and turn it into products, turn it into things that actually have value for people that we can actually sell many, many times. So you asked me, what are we doing? We're going online. We're digitizing. We're assuming that we're never going back to the old model. I'm part of a conversation. I told this to you before when we were chatting there a while ago, that I'm part of a conversation, a global conversation, so over 30 countries. And we had our last call Wednesday, we had our last call. And we have it every 2 weeks. And it's interesting talking to the people around the world, my peers, basically the other CEOs of the TTI operations around the world. And everybody's in agreement on one thing. The business model that we had before is gone, and it's not coming back. So the way we do business, what we offer and how we're paid, that's gone. Definitively gone. And it's never, ever going to come back. People are getting used to this. They want the flexibility. For example, we do training, certification training, for example, as one of the things that we do. And we train salespeople, for example. And they're never going to want to show up for this 2-day intensive workshop in the RDS members club. They'll want to be sitting at home, switching in for a 1-hour session, taking that module, going and doing something, applying it, getting some coaching, some support, and be able to rewind, watch the video again and again and again. They're going to want to do things differently. They won't want to go back to this whole thing. And we're assuming that, and we're developing our business model really around that.
Very, very interesting. Padraig, there's a lot of adapting, a lot of stuff going online. So probably a lot of behavior change. And I've worked closely with you around behaviors. But people working from home, okay, and the types of people that will struggle, at the moment. Who are they? And how might they need to adapt to this, to our new normal?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Of course, you're working, as you say, you're trained in all the TTI sciences, and you use all these tools in your work with salespeople and helping them develop themselves and develop their business, become more successful salespeople. And so you've got a really good insight in the whole idea of this behavioral model. So I'm going to tell you what I do. Let me share with you. Let me just share if that's okay. I'll just share a screen with you. And I'm going to pop through a couple of screens and just show you what a behavioral model, one, there are many behavioral models. I'm going to show you a behavioral model, if you wish. And just bear with me. So a behavioral model, and then show you how it applies to people who are working from home right now. So this behavioral model is called DISC. DISC. You see down there in the middle, dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. And basically what this model talks about is how people interact with the world. So how do I work? How do I like to do things? How do I like to communicate with people? So on. This actually is my report. and let me show you an example. So how do people interact? And for example, if you look at the in the middle there, you'll see dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. So dominance, that's all about how you deal with problems and challenges. So, for example, in my case, I drive through problems and challenges. So when I'm faced with a challenge like this, what do I do? You're not dissimilar. When we're faced with challenges, what do? We plow through them. But not everybody does that. Some people do things, they're very peaceful, very quiet. They bend rather than fight through. They bend to circumstances. How do you deal? So that's how we deal with problems and challenges. How do you deal here influencing with people and contacts? How do you influence people at your point of view? Well, I'm sort of poised and optimistic and trusting. Other people like you, Paddy, you're up here, I think, enthusiastic and magnetic. Somebody else could be down here, matter of fact and suspicious. They communicate only through facts. So how do you influence people to your point of view? So it's all about people and context. Then how do you deal with pace and consistency? We can see here I move very, very quickly. So steadiness, I'm very eager and flexible, almost impulsive, as are you. Other people that I work with, for example, in my team, are up here, are passive and patient. And then how you deal with rules and regulations, with constraints and procedures. And I'm here, I'm self-willed. So I'm a little bit of an anarchist, not quite the anarchist, but a little bit of an anarchist. As are you, Paddy.
Yeah.
Other people here who cross the T's and dot the I's, they do everything perfectly. So understanding that you have different behavioral styles means that you will deal with this. For example, I'm suffering from cabin fever. And I'm really we're about 3-4 weeks into this lockdown now, and I really had it. I've been really candid with you, and I'm ready to start breaking the rules. I'm really fed up of it. I want to get out there. I'm high D. I want to go and I want to get moving. I don't want to be constrained. I don't want anybody telling me what to do. Just like you, we want to do our own thing our way, and nobody's going to tell us how to do it. So for people like us, it's a real challenge. And for high I, for example, they really miss the social interaction. So the high D here is feeling constrained, and somebody's controlling them and not giving them information and telling them what they can and cannot do. The high I misses all the interaction. They want to be out there. They want to be engaged. They want the conversations. They get their energy from these conversations, these interactions, and they really, really miss that. The S here, they're patient and steady eddies and very, very solid. And they're finding it challenging in a different way. What kind of way do you think here's a good example. A high S, somebody who's very steady, slow moving, and so on and so forth. How would they find home living challenging? Well, it's very simple. They're living with other people who are different to them. They're living with people who are like me, who are getting really impatient, who are breaking, and they're having real problems. Or the high C. The high C sees me going out saying, I've had enough, I'm going for a spin on my motorbike. And the high C is going, oh my God, they're breaking the rules. I'm being a little bit facetious here, but you get the picture.
Yeah.
And so if you actually look at this and you say, what are the implications for this in terms of working from home? I'm just going to share a working from home report for you. So here's me. And this report is actually extracted from that behavior report I showed you a moment ago. So that behavior report, by the way, this working from home report is free. So anybody can go to TTISII.com, TTISII.com, and up the top of the page you'll see the link, and you go and complete this report and get this report for free. Or I'm sure you, Paddy, have a link of your own that you're probably going to share with all your contacts, and you probably put it in the description of this video. But this working from home report takes those behavioural characteristics and asks a few simple questions. Number one, what's my communication style? And as a consequence, I need to be aware of this. So you can see my style here in this conversation, like high energy, sort of a little bit in your face, this kind of style. And that's fine when you're with somebody and they can take a step back from you, and they can see the cues. They realise you're not being aggressive, you're just being Padraig, or you're just being Paddy. Yeah. But when you're on the phone or you're online, maybe they have the same opportunity, and maybe we need to be more aware of our style and the style of others, and look for clues. And I'll talk about clues and cues in just a moment. And so, for example, in the case of the high D, what will they say? They'll be forceful. They get right to the point. They'll be sharp. They'll be short. We say with the high D, be brief, be bright, and be gone.
In and out.
In and out. They talk in the immediate time frame. You'll hear them say they try to avoid anything insensitive. Their statements will be measured. No, they won't. They will solicit other opinions. No, they won't. They won't at all. They won't do those things. You see the body movements tend to be controlled. Direct eye contact, they sort of look at you. Quick movements, impatient. You won't see them being deliberate and thoughtful. You won't see them being not rushed and taking their time. You won't see them waiting for the best time to move. No, they all do them. You see lots of projects, there's lots of things going on. If you ask me what am I working on right now, I can tell you 50 things I'm working on. There's lots, and so on. So you get a sense of this direct style. And so then you got to ask yourself the question, when you're working remotely, I need to communicate carefully because the visual cues are gone. I need to break down assignments into small pieces and have successes in my day. I need to learn how to delegate. How do you delegate when you're working remotely? Lots of to-do lists and go to people so I can actually quickly reach out and say, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that when I have an issue? Complete tasks fast and so on. So you can see in this report here, it gives us tips. How do I communicate with the high D? Was obviously how low D, but just say you, Paddy, high I. How do I communicate with you? Well, to communicate with you, I need the video communication as opposed to the phone. Why? You feel more connected. You can see me. We feel we're having a relationship. We're having a conversation here. Follow up then with quick action steps. So when I work with you straight away, I said I'd do it, bang, get to the actions, you get the email from me straight away, you get the text message saying I'm doing it. Don't be too factual, don't be too formal, be relaxed, be the way we're being on this video, and be fair, and so on. So you get us a little bit of the sense of how all of this works and how these behavioral styles work. In fact, I mentioned to you before, you have this. This is a book, and I'm not promoting this book. This is a book that we use when we're training people, particularly people in sales around behaviors. It's called Know Yourself, Know Your Customer. And you have this, and I know you use this material. And this is all about know yourself, know your customer. If you're standing in front of your customer, you can use the nose test. You can look, you see, you feel, you get a whole sense of what's going on. When you're in a video call, you don't really know what's going on for that person. It's quite different. And or if you're on a phone call, it's even worse. You can't even see them. So you have to start looking for cues. Like, what is this person? How are they? What language are they using? How are they talking to me? And when am I talking too fast? For example, as I do all the time, am I talking too fast? So I need to slow down. Do I need to ask more questions? And these are things we do naturally when the person's in front of us because we see the cues. But when they're not in front of us, we don't. So we need to become much, much more aware of our behavioral style. I'd also make one other point to you. Remember that your client, he's also sitting at home. He's also suffering. So he's also suffering the stresses associated with it, depending on his style. So he's being challenged as well. It's not just you managing your style, understand him. He's at the other end here of the phone or the other end of the video call, also facing his own dilemmas, his own crisis in terms of his behavioral style and the way he likes to interact with the world, the way he likes to work. And you need to be super cognizant of that as well. That they're not normal. This is not normal. But it's going to become the new normal, and you have to master it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of kind of self-awareness there, Padraig, and sticking with the feel good team. And it's interesting because I'm watching my behavior. There's high I, my actions are out. Because even I was thinking, from an adapting point of view and doing videos, because I'm a high I and I'm using all these actions like I'm doing right now, I'm going to need to tame that down when I'm communicating through Zoom with a customer, whoever it may be. So if we're to feel better, I suppose we need to understand ourselves a little bit more, but also understand our team style, because the impact that we're having on ourselves by not understanding ourselves, and plus the impact we're having on others.
Let me just take this point. I want to go back to the old world. I used to always recommend in the old world the people in an office had on their door or had on their desk their behavioural and driving force profile for two reasons. The first reason was so they could remember their own style and how, for example, I'm high D, you're high I. They're wonderful wonderful styles, of course, we would imagine, because we have them, but they can be overpowering. They can be too aggressive, they can be overpowering, they can be overbearing, they don't listen, there are lots of things. And it's really important we remember and adapt our style. But equally, it's important for people coming into the office and say, oh, hold on a second. Paddy, I remember Paddy. I'm going to go in there, a bit of social interaction first, a few good things, some good news before we get down to the hard stuff. Okay, so I know how to interact with Paddy. So I've always recommended that. Obviously, we can't do that here. So online, it's really, really important that you adapt. This working from home report, just talk about your teams for a moment. And I would strongly encourage everybody to do this assessment, get their team to do the assessment, and have a conversation about it. Simple as that. For example, let me just share with you again, just for a moment, the working from home report. And just to show you this, just pop down here for a moment. So this is showing how I, Padraig, should communicate with people. Okay, so I'm communicating with the high S, the steady person, or the low S, the fast B, a high C and a low C, and so on. But so it's telling me for each one what I need to do. But down at the end of it here is a worksheet, improving your self-awareness. So understanding your behaviors, how they work, how they don't work, how they will impact on others and different people. So you could have your team members say, how am I going to impact? Let's say we're one team. How am I going to impact on Paddy? How do I need to communicate differently with Paddy? What should I be thinking about? So, for example, let's say, Paddy, you and I are working with somebody who likes lots of detail. They like the facts, they like the detail, they're high C, they're compliant, they cross the T's, they dot the I's. Well, before the call, we'd send them a memo. We'd send them an email saying, here's what we're going to talk about, here's the agenda, here's my view on the following things. And we sent them yesterday. So they've time to reflect and prepare for today's meeting. So these kind of simple little things, I can see here there's 4 questions or 5 questions saying things that we can do and how we can actually change to adapt to other people. So this has always been true. We've always, I always say to salespeople, you have to be the adult in the room. It's a good way of thinking of it. It's for you to adapt to the other person, not for them to adapt to you, particularly when you're talking to your customer. They've no obligation. You're selling. They've no obligation at all to adapt to you. You have to adapt to them. But in general, it's a good rule in general, I think, in all your relationships, including your romantic relationships, your family relationships, and so on, your friendships. It's a good rule to be the adult. Say, I'm going to adapt to the other person and trust that they're trying to adapt to you. And you'll meet somewhere in the middle. So I would encourage them to use this working from home report and talk about their teams. And then if they want to go further with you, then go further and actually get a full report done and get a team report done so they can see all the various styles and how they communicate and how they work together and so on and so forth. So
doing the reports is going to open up loads of good intentional communication as opposed to because especially high Ds, and I'm saying that with a high Ds, the assertive thing, do this, we're going to change this and we're moving in. And they're going, Jesus Christ, what are you doing? Like, calm down here, you're moving too fast. So there's lovely information in that report, I suppose for us as leaders, to have good, honest, intentional communication with our team and vice versa. Yeah.
Well, interesting, one of the things I've noticed, I seem to be living on Zoom these days, and one of the things that I've noticed is that the meetings are better. Mm-hmm. And they're better because people come to the meeting with a purpose. We know why the meeting's taking place. We're not sort of wandering into the office, drinking their cups of coffee and everybody's waffling. People sort of sit down. How long can you waffle on Zoom? You waffle for a minute, and then you say, okay, let's start doing business, and the meeting gets going very, very quickly. And number one. So number two, then people tend to deal with it because they're looking at the screen, they're paying attention. They're not on their phone, they're not doing that, but they're paying attention and you're sharing stuff on the screen and so on. So I find the meetings tend to be better. However, you absolutely must be even more intentional than you were historically. For sure, you must be. Because again, to get back to the point I made earlier, let's say, for example, somebody is a high C. They're a very compliant person. They cross the T's, they dot the I's. They don't want to make a mistake ever. They don't want to be ever held up as you made a mistake, you've got it wrong. So you can't go through a meeting, bang, 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 the way you and I would, for example, with a high C. Unless the high C is chairing the meeting, you'll find it very slow, very paced, and they'll be looking for you to present your facts and your figures. So it's really, really important to be even, as you say, to be even more intentional and to make these meetings fruitful. There's a system called EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and in they've got a meeting agenda format called the Level 10 meeting. And it's a really, really good format. It's a really, really good way to conduct meetings online. When you're on Zoom or Skype or whatever, you're having a meeting with one or more people. It's a really, really good way to use a nice, simple format that allows people to prepare, allows people to go through and discuss issues in a sort of a structured way, where we actually identify an issue, define what it is, have a discussion around it, and then solve it, and then move on, and so on. So it's actually a structured format that you don't always need in ordinary meetings, but I think online it can be very, very helpful.
Okay, that's good. It's nice information there, Padraig. I must look it up. So the world of sales then, Padraig, our sales have changed. So what tips can you give us about selling in our new world?
Yeah, okay. The first thing I would say is, I know this will sound, every salesman will understand what I'm going to say next, even though it sounds bizarre. Everybody knows this. So what's the number one rule of selling? You don't try and sell. That's the number one rule of selling. And you should get to a point in a conversation with somebody where they're saying, what's the next step? because you've actually paid attention to them. You're attending to them. You talk about being intentional. You can be intentional, and by attending, you attend to them. And remember, the only act of will is the act of paying attention. So you pay attention to them. You park your ego and your agenda and your need, perhaps even in these tough times, your need for the sale. You park it at the front door. Okay, speaking metaphorically, you park at the front door and you go in there with the intention of helping. And the only way you can help is by understanding. I want you to imagine you go to a doctor and he says, "Oh, great to see you, Paddy. I'm doing a special on pink pills today. What do you think?" You run a mile. When you go to the doctor, you expect, "Gee, Paddy, how are you? Why are you here?" Now, obviously, we are there when we're selling, but why are you here? What's the problem? Let's understand it. Let's actually do an examination, a careful examination. And only out of that examination, try and come up with a diagnosis. And only out from that diagnosis, try and come up with a prescription. And we should come to a logical place where we agree this is the course of action that's appropriate, which is called a sale. So my first piece of advice would be to not sell. Park the need to sell at the door and see how can I help. The working from home report is a good example. We're doing this as free, and it's our attempt to help. To say, can we actually help people right now? And we've to date globally, we've done about 40,000 of these reports, and we're hoping to do maybe 1 million free. So we've only launched this a week ago or whatever it is. So we're hoping to do 1 million. And the purpose is to try and help. People will remember the people who helped. I remember years and years ago, I was a management trainee. I originally started in the hotel business. I did hotel management, then did an MBA in finance. But I was a management trainee in the London Tower Hotel. And I was about to start my week. I had just done a couple of days in purchasing. And I was going to do a week or 2 weeks with the purchasing manager. And the purchasing manager, Monday came and the purchasing manager didn't show up. And the purchasing manager, by the way, never showed up again. That's neither here nor there. But she never showed up. And I was in the purchasing office and I had 2 days training. I had no idea what to do. And the general manager, was an 844 bedroom hotel. And the general manager came into me and he said, are you on top of this? Are you okay? And what was I going to say? I said, of course, no problem. And I had no idea what I was doing. And the first sales guy who came in, he was a guy who used to sell paper products to us, toilet paper, kitchen towels, this kind of stuff. And he came in to me and he said, "Where's so-and-so?" And I said, "She hasn't shown up." And he said, "Oh," he said, "do you know what you're doing?" And I said, "I haven't got a clue." And he said, "That's okay." He said, "Before I went into sales, I worked in purchasing." He said, "Bear with me a minute." And he got on the phone, he cancelled the calls he was making that day, and he sat down and he spent the day with me in purchasing. And he did all the purchasing for me that day. And at the end of the day, I said to him, "What you've done for me is incredible. So I will never forget it." I said, "I want you to send into me every product that you have, and I'm going to send out to you every price that we have for those products. You have to beat the price, okay? You have to beat the price. I can't do anything dishonest. You have to, but if you can beat the price on the list of products I'm going to send you, I'll send you a list of the price on every product. I'll give you the business." That was the best piece of business I said that guy ever did in his life. And I still tell that story. And this is now 40 years later, almost 40 years later, 35 years later, I still tell this story. I've never forgotten that guy. So if you can help somebody now, particularly now, in this crisis that everybody's going through, every business is struggling. They're all wondering, will they open their doors again? People are really, really worried. If you can help now, the people will never forget you. So my advice to a salesperson in general is to park the sale at the door, the need for the sale, and go in and help. But now particularly go in and help. And if I was telling now, I'd be talking, as I am, I talk to all my clients all the time, say, how can I help? How can I help? How? To the point where one of them actually came back to Padraig, this is 6 communications in 1 week. I'm considering this now spam. Go away. But that's my advice to a salesperson right now. Your clients need help. Your customers need help. Your customers are afraid. They're panicking. They're worried. Your job right now is to support them, to reassure them and say, I'm here for you and I will help you whatever way I can. And I promise you, as I told you the story, they will never forget you. Whatever you do, don't try and hustle them. This is not a time to try and say, "Oh, I don't think they're really down right now. I'm going to do a special just for you." That is not the conversation. I mean, we're doing it right now, for example, we're discounting all our certification training by 50%. But we're saying to people, right now, we know the following. One, you're doing nothing. You have a gift of time. Two, the world is going to be different. The world we're coming out of is going to be different. Three, you need to prepare for that. Four, you've no money. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the certification training for you right now online, so you can do it at home, so you can learn at your own pace on a different model for half the price. Now that's credible. That's not trying to hustle somebody. That's trying to help. So you can still sell, but in a way that makes sense for the client.
Yeah, it is all about helping. And just a very powerful question that you asked there, Padraig, and I'm hearing it time and time again. How are you?
Yeah, how are you?
How are you? I'm hearing it. I talk to my team on a daily basis. How are you? Just like it's a beautiful question, because that's what we need. We don't need to be sold to at the moment. We need to be helping. So absolutely, yeah.
The sale will come. Think about it. Think about this. Who do you buy from? You buy from people that you like and trust. And you like and trust people who listen to you. To listen to somebody, you have to ask them a question. And the best questions you can start with is, how are you? How are things? Are you okay? And then you listen. And you continue asking questions and you listen. And that builds up trust in the person. They trust you and they like you and they know you're there for them. And they will, I guarantee you, they will buy for you. They will buy for you even if you're more expensive. They will, because they want to do business with you. They want to reciprocate. They know that, in fact, you have genuinely have their interest at heart. You can't pretend this, by the way. Just avoid the doubt now. This is not some slimy sales pitch.
Yeah.
You got to be real here. It's got to be sincere. You have to genuinely want to help the person. It's not a trick that you're developing that's going to help you do some more sales. You got to say, no, I'm going to park my need to sell at the door. I'm going to forget about my needs and I'm going to focus on the other individual and I'm going to help them. And if you do that, the wheel goes round. And I'm telling you, if you do that, it will come back to you for sure.
Yeah. So communication, empathy, compassion, all huge. Yeah.
Compassion is a great word.
Mm-hmm.
A really, really good word. I'm always amazed, Paddy, when I see people giving out about someone. And I say, stop, take a deep breath. Now, why are you giving out about them? And they say, well, I'm giving out because they got a very bad habit or a very bad characteristic, or very rude, or very this or that. I said, now, I want you to imagine that they could see themselves like that. They could understand themselves the way you understand them. They could see themselves the way, how would they feel? And the person said, well, they'd be devastated, they'd be ashamed, they'd be upset. So the appropriate response to them is compassion. Mm-hmm. If they knew themselves, they could see themselves, they would be ashamed, they would be devastated. Feel compassion for them. They don't know any better. And so it's a great response. And right now, in the world we live in today, compassion is a great response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And we're seeing a lot of it. I think for me, definitely in the last 5 weeks, just, I'm experiencing it and seeing a lot more empathy and compassion. And it's just to bring that into the sales, into our teams, even more so now, because it's everyone benefits from empathy, compassion, and even self-compassion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Give yourself a break.
Yeah, give yourself a break. Yeah, especially for business owners, so give yourself a break here. Yeah, because it's very tough for business owners. You're looking after themselves, their teams. So it's good to just take a little step back and go, do you know what? You're doing a good job. Give yourself a little break. Yeah.
Okay, let me answer the question you haven't asked me. And the question you haven't asked me is, what now? What next? What should we do? So I assume that's going to be your closing question. I'm taking a big assumption.
Yes. Yeah. So my closing question, Padraig, for you is, okay, so what have we got to feel good about now and feel good about in the future from a business perspective? Yeah.
Okay. And I go down to that in a funny way. Let me just say the following. Number one, the way you explain things to yourself is all you're in control of. There's very, very little in the world, very little you're in control of. Don't catastrophize. Explain things to yourself. So, for example, you're sitting in a car in traffic, you've 2 up and you're rushing for a meeting, you're late. There's 2 ways you can look at it. Oh my God, and you can start ranting, raving, blasting your horn, whatever, or exactly giving a gift of time. You get on the phone, you apologize to the customer, say, I'm going to be late, I'm stuck in traffic. That says nothing to do with it. And you take the opportunity to reflect, to take a breath of air, to listen to the radio, to do whatever. There's 2 ways of explaining the world to yourself. Everything flows from that. Everything, your whole life flows from the way you explain things to yourself. So, here's my advice to everybody out there. Explain this to yourself differently. Say, I've been given, for better or for worse, a gift of time. What am I in control of? What am I going to do with this gift of time? So that I look back, as we said earlier, with no regrets and no recriminations. And I'm going to give some practical examples. Playing with your children. And by the way, children spell love, T-I-M-E. The time that you spend with them on the floor or doing the jigsaw or watching the dumb movie with them, doing what they want. Spend time with the people you love. Invest time in them. Go for a walk with your partner. Do these things, really important. Look at your own development. Ask yourself a question. What can I do physically? Maybe this is for the first time ever, you now have the time to go for a run. Do it. Go for a walk first if you can't go for a run. Look at yourself physically, mentally. How can you develop your resilience? How can you use this as an opportunity to learn and grow and become more resilient, become stronger as a human being? Emotionally, how can you develop yourself emotionally? How can you feel? Feel your feelings. When you have a problem, feel it down here. Don't feel it here. You don't feel it up here. Feel it down here. Feel the emotion. Take a deep breath and then ask yourself the question, what am I feeling? And then do the trick I do, which is this. I look over my shoulder and I say, where is it coming from? Feel the feeling. Ask yourself, describe it. What am I feeling? And then look over your shoulder and say, where is that coming from? And you'll see where it's coming from in the past. And say, I acknowledge the feeling and then let it go. Let it go. And that's anger, that's sadness, that's despair. It's also too much excitement, too much feeling good. Let it all go. Take a deep breath and be in the present moment. And then spiritually, this is an opportunity for everybody to connect with something bigger than themselves. We're experiencing in society where we have to take care of our elderly neighbours. We can stop thinking about me and mine and expand our circle of influence just a little bit beyond ourselves and our small little cohort of our family and our immediate friends and colleagues, expand it out a little bit and become a little broader as human beings in terms of the impact that we have on the world. So when you think about it spiritually isn't God. Spiritually is something bigger than you, that you realize there's something more, something beyond you and that short little gap that you're given called your life. So you can expand yourself. So this is my first piece of advice, is to think differently, explain things to yourself differently. Focus on the things that you're in control of. Physical, mental, spiritual, emotional. Focus on these. Focus on your family. Focus on developing yourself. Focusing on preparing for the future. So as you look back, a healthier, fitter, smarter, more emotionally mature, better trained, better developed, new tools, new techniques, new skills at all levels. So that you're ready for the future. I guarantee you the following. You mentioned, Paddy, in the introduction that I worked for Chuck Feeney. I was the MD of his investment company here for a decade. And Chuck Feeney is a philanthropist. He founded duty-free shoppers and made an awful lot of money, and thousands of millions, many, many billions. And he gave it all away in his Giving While Living pledge. But I learned a lot from him. And one of the things that I learned from him that I think is really, really important is, number one, focus on what's in front of you. Focus on the things that you're in control of. Forget about the other stuff. Like, focus on these things. Be there at the end. And the end is the beginning. So the end of this is the beginning of the new world. Be there at the end. He used to always say to me, Padraig, he said, you have to be there at the end. Everything gets divvied up in the end. If you're not there, you don't get anything. And so in this particular circumstance, what be there at the end means that you're ready, re-equipped, retrained, redeveloped, resilient, stronger in every shape, make, or form. So that when the market lifts again, and it will lift again, when it lifts again, you're the winner. You're there, you're ready to rock and roll. You've got everything it takes to go forward. You've digitized yourself, you've trained yourself, you've developed yourself. You're ready to rock and roll. And the other guys aren't, because they didn't do this. They didn't listen to this video. They didn't pay attention to what Paddy was telling them. They didn't train them, they didn't do these things. And they're not ready. And they get left behind. They're part of the old world. Last comment. This is, I said, my fourth major downturn I've experienced. And they all have a few things in common. And one of the things that they have in common that always struck me is, they call them jobless recoveries. They're not actually jobless recoveries, and that's a misnomer. They recover, they create loads of jobs, and you end up with full employment together, near full employment for most people. But they're jobless recoveries for some people, for the people who don't prepare themselves for the new lift. Because the new lift, the new curve is always different. And some people haven't prepared themselves for it, and they get left behind, and they start on that slippery slope, that decline into oblivion. So my closing advice to everybody is, you have a gift of time. Focus on what you're in control of. Prepare yourself. Get ready. So when the lift comes, you've developed the relationships, you've developed yourselves, you've developed the skills, and you're ready to rock and roll.
Great advice, Padraig. Great advice. And as you were talking there, growth. I like you, very much a growth mindset. And as you were talking there, it was coming into my head, was happiness comes from growth. And now we've got a huge opportunity, as you said, that's just been, the gift of time has been given to us, and now we need to embrace it.
Remember, all the statistics are clear on this. The money is made in the bus, not in the booms. It's made by the people who, coming out of the bus, have the capacity to exploit the new opportunity, the new world we live in. That's where the money is made. So
we have choices, Padraig, and lots.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, Padraig, thanks a million for your time today. I really, really appreciate it, and really enjoyed my interview with you. Thank you very much for sharing your time, sharing your knowledge, and we will catch up very, very soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks, Paddy. Pleasure talking to you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.